One, and we are live. Yay! Everything's working.
Congratulations, Max.
Yeah.
It's like you're a technology guy. You know what you're doing.
Well, I have to. Otherwise, what we would do with all the media stuff, right? So thank you very much, Jason. We have Jason Lavigne on the show, and it's been a pleasure to be with you today and ask some questions about a bit of everything, I guess. That's going to be the theme for today. I know that for some people who are in the audience, I was supposed to have Derek Smith from Executive French, but he has some last minute things on your schedule. Happens, so he's gonna join me on Monday, and then you send me a message on X, say, "Hey, Max, wanna come?" Yeah, sure, no worries. I'll get the questions, so that's gonna be fantastic. So first and foremost, questions, general questions. We're gonna have some good time, and it's gonna be like a very relaxed chat and kind of like a fireside chat. That's gonna be good. So it's gonna be fantastic. I'm just gonna check with the people if the audio is okay. I think everything is.
Sure, your audio is good.
Yeah, we tested. Should be pretty much standard at this point. Fantastic. So question. So we're going to talk about specifically about the Lavigne Show, more like a macro general questions. Then we're going to talk about the media landscape, specifically with the outstream media, the alternative media as well. The third topic will be censorship specifically. The fourth question will be the relationship with the grassroots in general. And the fifth question, the fifth subject will be independence, because I think everybody's tuned in on independence. We'll get that to the very end because I like to spoil the fun on everything. But that's just me. All right. So, Jason, talk about yourself. What actually kept you keeping going? What is actually what pushed you to do your the Jason Lavigne Show? What kept you pushing? How long you've been doing this? And give a little glance of what you've done and kind of going what ways into doing this.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Max, for having me on your show. And remember, like and subscribe to Max's channel, because the more we grow that, the more voices get out there. And that's exactly why I got into this, Max. About 2022, as I watched the convoy cross Canada and I saw alt media streaming from the streets of Ottawa, I was really inspired that that's going to be the new way to get the voices out. And I wanted to do something. I wanted to get involved because I was really concerned about what would happen to my family if Canada continued to slide down into the area of no rights, and that includes parental rights. I'm a
Mhm.
parent of two, and I was very concerned that that is something that's going to affect my life and their life in the future. So I decided to get myself involved. First, Max, I was looking at political life, trying to get involved on the federal level, work my way through the legislature or the parliament, so provincial or federal, because I wanted to take my skills, which has a legal background, an entrepreneur background, and a technology background, and really bring it into helping my neighbors. So I thought, getting into politics would be a good way to do that. And in order to reach out to the thousands of people that I want to represent and work with, that's where the idea of the show came up. I was inspired by Viva Fry and many others at the convoy level,
Mhm.
because all they really had was a camera, a microphone, internet connection, and the courage, exactly, one of those, the courage to get out there and have real, live, raw conversations. With my legal background, Max, I thought I could provide some commentary and kind of take up where Viva left off in Canada because he moved down to Florida. And I thought,
Yes.
let's give it a shot. So, with the Public Order Emergency Commission being announced and it was going to be streamed via their website, I thought, here we go. Let's just try that. So, for 12 hours a day for 6 weeks straight, I was streaming the Public Order Emergency Commission, providing
Mm.
commentary, building an audience, meeting people. I flew to Ottawa for the last 2 days, which was Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau, their testimony. And that's when I got to meet some people in real life, like Tom Marazzo and Keith Wilson and some others. And that's where I started to build up my little network on having people on as a guest. So that morphed my show after the Public Order Emergency Commission was complete. I took a break during Christmas time and came back. And the first guest I had on my new show, which was an interview style format, kind of like what you're doing here today, it was Tom Marazzo. Tom Marazzo was my first
Mm.
guest on my first show. And then I did 700 interviews over 2.5 years to build
700.
up the audience and my knowledge as I was trying to become a politician.
Yeah, and I think you run as well. At least I know that you ran at least federally in the park in the Brasco County, if I may believe, and
Yep.
Parkland Santan. I believe, am I correct?
So federal, it was Parkland, the
Okay.
ride into Parkland, which included Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, Drayton Valley, Breton, and
Mhm.
that area. And then on the municipal level, just in October, I ran for Brazeau County, a councillor. I placed second there, so I was a runner-up there.
Ooh,
And
nice.
not bad considering I'm pretty new to the area. 4 years is I was living here for just under 4 years or just over 4 years.
Mhm.
But I have a desire to help. So the show has been absolutely a good avenue for that, a good platform for that. And who knows? Maybe there's some more political ambitions in my near future. But for
Mhm.
now, I'm focused on the show. I'm focused
Yeah.
on Alberta self determination and expanding the guests on my show from Danielle Smith to Mickey Amory to Jeff Rath to Mitch
Mhm.
Sylvester, and basically anybody and everybody who has a voice in Alberta when it comes to self determination. I'm focused on interviewing them and bringing those conversations forward.
What is your definition of self-determination? Because they seem to be
That,
talking
That's a
about.
broad term, and that simply means you decide your future. So whatever that may look like, that could be a sovereign Alberta within Canada, as Danielle Smith would say. That could
Mhm.
be an independent Alberta outside of Canada, as the APP is providing. That could
Okay.
be even joining the 51st state. Some people are looking forward to doing that kind of option. That would be self-determination as well. Self-determination is when the people decide their future and they don't allow outside influence to go ahead and dictate to them what it is. So that's why that term covers all of those options. Self-determination is Alberta choosing its future.
Oh, okay. I see. I understand it. And how long you've been? And I think you've moved from another province, isn't it? You're how long you've been here in Alberta? I've been here for 3 years, by the way.
Mhm.
So I'm not new in the. I'm very new in the area. How about yourself?
I'm a Canadian mutt, to be honest with you. So I was born in northern Manitoba. I spent my
Ooh.
early years, young years in Saskatchewan, near Saskatoon, some of it in the city, some of it rural. I went back to Winnipeg for my high school years, and my junior high years. So people know me in Winnipeg as a young
Ooh.
man with ambitions to be a computer programmer, which is what I
Ooh.
eventually ended up doing. When I graduated from high school in Winnipeg, I moved out east to the Toronto area, all over the GTA. I hung out there growing up, building a career. I even spent about a year in Nova Scotia as I was helping him with the year 2000 conversion. Remember that Y2K thing? When everybody was worried about the big bug at the
Oh
stroke of
yeah,
midnight for
and
2000.
turned out to be a hoax. But now we have the new one, which is the year 2038.
That's a new one to me, but we made a lot of money checking computers and changing their clocks forward, seeing what would happen. But I was responsible for Nova Scotia Power, so to make sure that the power systems didn't have any issues. And then I moved back to the GTA and celebrated New Year's there, and kind of did a lot of technology, writing systems for ticketing, event ticketing, taking on Ticketmaster. So I've been a David and Goliath type of guy for my entire life, taking on large establishments with software that we write, just
Mm-hmm.
in the back room, making some code. And you're a tech guy, so you
Oh,
understand what that's like.
oh yeah.
And had some success there. We sold the business to a large Canadian operation called Maple Music, who got into the event space, and then eventually sold it off to One Tickets, which is a U.S. company. And from
Mm-hmm.
that, I got into law out in the GTA. I became a paralegal, went to law school in my late 30s, and I actually took my law exam on my 40th birthday, February 14th,
Oh.
2017. So I was able to pass that and started my little law career there. Got into municipal government because I was trying to become a prosecutor and understand that part of the business. But
Mm-hmm.
they actually needed me for technology because I have a strong technology background. And
Yeah.
then in 2021, when things were getting pretty difficult in Ontario, I couldn't go to the local store without my cell phone buzzing and telling me to get back home. We decided to pack up the family and move west. So May of 2021, we ended up in Alberta with virgin land. There wasn't even a driveway. We parked our car on a dirt road and started building. And that's our little homestead. And we're happy to be here for the last 4 and a bit years, going on to 5 years now in May 2026. And couldn't be more pleased with this move. But it
May
was politics that came later.
2026.
Our ambition to move to Alberta was to provide a homestead and homeschooling to our children, because we absolutely believe in being in full control of our destiny. And a homestead
Yeah.
and homeschool life is what's great for us. Off grid as well, so we have to
Oh.
use a generator in winter and enjoy solar panels in the summer. But politics came later after I moved here,
Okay.
as the convoy kind of opened up the door to my concerns that Canada was falling apart. So that's where I got more involved there. And then the Alberta independence movement, self-determination movement came as we all kind of started heading that direction after the federal election. When Mark Carney
Mm,
took over for the 4th term for the Liberals, we said, nah, this is it. We don't
this is
have
it.
much of a hope left, and got
I
more involved in
remember.
the.
I remember when that happened. I was live streaming the election federally, and it was probably 1 or 2 in the morning Alberta time, and then I saw it myself. Oh my goodness! I think Mark Carney won. And at that day, I emailed a whole bunch of people within EPP and all those groups that we need to do a live stream. And I think we have a very large audience that day. That was very good. That was very good. But I think that I think for a lot of people, this urge for Alberta to become independent started from the election from Mark Carney. So that's
Well,
connected.
let me take you through that evening for me because I was running as a candidate. So we were having a
Yes.
watch party. We were having a watch party here in Drayton Valley, and the mood was optimistic because we did a lot of hard work to get the vote out here in Parkland. And as the numbers were coming in, it became very clear that I wasn't going to win my seat. But we kept watching the results. And as the Liberals kept picking up seats, at first the mood in that room was, oh man, like if I don't win my seat, that sucks. But we still want to see a conservative government form. We don't want another Liberal government. But as the numbers started to come in more and more, and we saw that there was at least going to be a minority, the mood changed, but it didn't change the way you would expect. It changed from frustration into optimism because if
Okay.
Carney does form the government, Alberta is definitely going to take the next step towards independence. And before I went to bed that night, Max, I had 3 conversations, I think, which really put me into the current path that I'm on. The first one was with Jeffrey Rath, who called me, and he was very
Mm.
excited, actually. He's like, look, it's going to be time now. So he read to me his letter to Alberta that he posted on the 29th, so the day after the election. He read to me the draft, and I was inspired by that. The next conversation I had was Mitch Sylvester, who told me like 4,000 new members signed up that evening since the announcement that the Liberals had the minority government.
4,000.
So
Oh my.
4,000, and that was like 2 hours after it happened is when I talked to him. So very, very quickly, new people were signing up for the APP. He was very excited, and he said he hasn't seen numbers like this before. The enthusiasm's back, and it looks like Alberta's ready to start having that conversation again. And then the last communication I had that night was with Danielle Smith, who let me know that
Mm.
the next day she was going to make a press release, have a press conference about some election reform, and that ended up being Bill 54 that she announced the next day, which changed the limits and changed some of the election and referendum criteria here in Alberta. So I went to bed losing the election, but very optimistic that the future of Alberta is going to happen, and it's going to be very, very promising for the rest of my family, the generations to come, and my neighbors. So I went to bed actually smiling because there was three incredible conversations before I went to bed
Oh
that let
yeah.
me know we're moving, we're shifting gears now.
Oh yeah. With very little sleep though, but that's okay. That's just a side effect of being like
Yeah,
this, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, and I think it was a good one experience. When I talk with some people when Dennis Modric, when I was doing the live streams with Dennis Modric, is always asking this question: who was happy that Carney won the election? And I was one of the few guys who actually raised their hand for that reason, because now
yeah.
we get to see this whole thing. And quite honestly, when I moved here to Alberta, I didn't I wasn't like very open to idea of independence. For me was a very taboo subject, but knowing after the town hall meetings the abuse and witness testimonies from people who live here all their life, how they suffered
Hmm.
throughout the Trudeau senior eras, it's clear that it's only a matter of time we would kick out independence, right? So, yeah, it's a very wide open experience. And now I'm like, I personally am all for independence, pretty much for the same reason you mentioned. Like, you want a future for your kids, for your family, all those things, So, that's
A
another
very
thing.
similar path for me too, Max. When I moved here, independence wasn't on my mind. But when I ran federally and I was knocking on doors and having meetings and talking to people, that's when I quickly understood the frustration that's been around for 40 plus years within the Confederation, within Canada, growing here. There was definitely people that reached out quickly and said, look, I'm for independence. I'd like to leave Canada right away. There's some people that said, I'm thinking about it, but I'm concerned. And then there were some people that say, no, I think we can make things work in Canada. So I got quite the education on a campaign trail when I was running federally. And doing that is when I really started to understand APP more, talk to them a bit more, understand what they're up to, checked out a couple
Mhm.
of events. And then, as you know, after the election, got far more involved in checking out what the APP is up to. I was at the Calgary event when 1,000 people showed up and filled that hall to have a conversation. You were in Breton with us to see about a third of the town showed up that night to have the conversation. So
Oh
since
yeah.
then, I think we've been very active in communicating and listening to
Mhm.
Albertans.
Yeah, and Michael Wagner is one of these those individuals who I personally convinced me to enter independence, because he was going all the way through the Milch cow parable down to what's actually going on, and he really went very deep into the story component of the independence movement, how that started, and all those things. So yeah, it's very open to see all that knowledge coming right off the bat, boom, and all those
Mhm.
speakers coming from everywhere, like Kathy Fleck, who does very good presentations on us on that, Michael Wagner. So I think that right now, I think starting to see where truth is actually popping up everywhere, and there's no way to hide as well too.
Yeah.
Le- Let's talk to another subject which is kind of related to the truth, which is the media landscape, because eventually what we're seeing now is that the mainstream media industrial apparatus, as I call, is losing their grip. and you are also technically an alternative media. I saw you at the GGM. Oh, by the way, I'm talking to the microphone. I'm using the same mixer that I loaned the other day.
Oh,
Just for
fantastic. That saved your butt for sure. Thank you very much. 5,000 plus people, really thank you for that
yeah, absolutely.
ability
I'm
to
using
stream the audio.
yeah, that's the same mixer that I have for my microphone. I know it works. Just a side
No,
note
you did
there.
great. Thank you very much for that,
Yeah,
Max.
absolutely good. So now we have to discuss the relationship with with the media, because we're getting to the point where the mainstream media is basically lying to the public, is losing their grip, and they're doing very hard to discredit us and call us names and all those things. What do you think, how do you see the alternative media from a market perspective, trends, that sort of thing? How you think that the alternative media is going to progress or evolve over time, at least from your media, at least?
Well, now that Max has joined doing the streams, I think we took a really great turn for the best. But I don't want to call them mainstream media anymore, because I actually believe independent journalism is the mainstream now. The
Okay.
legacy media absolutely are the ones you're referring to there. Shadow Davis calls them the corporate Marxist media or something along those lines. Let's actually not call them mainstream anymore, because they're not really mainstream. I think Joe
Mm.
Rogan proved that with Trump on his show, where he basically influenced an entire election by just going on one podcast and having a long form conversation. I think
Yes.
mainstream now is you, me, Shadow, and others, and that would include Rebel and True North and additional ones that you used to call alt media. I don't think we're alternate or the new guys on the block anymore. I think we are the mainstream, and let me kind of quantify that for you, Max. So at the AGM, the UCP AGM, I was at the media table, as you saw, and this was all of the legacy media there. So CTV was there, Global was there, CBC, and others were there, and none of them were streaming. I was the only one at that table that was streaming,
Is it?
and yeah, and the audience would come up and talk to me and say, "Hey, I watch your show. Thanks for doing what you're doing." Not once did any of the other media there have anybody pop up and say, "Hey, I recognize you. Thanks a lot for being here." At all. In fact, it got to the point where they were all kind of, like, who is this guy? Because I'm not in their club. So they're wondering, like, what's going on here? All the way to the point where CBC actually made an article and included me in it as media. And they were very impressed with the numbers that we were pulling in for the online streaming. 5,000 concurrent at one time, which is more
Mm.
people online than was in the actual event. It was 4,200 there. So CBC took note and like, wow, okay, so how do you do that? And they're like, well, first tell the truth. He didn't laugh as much as I did on that comment, but he interviewed me and gave me some credibility from his side, because he didn't like talk bad about me. He didn't twist it or anything. He just introduced me as somebody with a very large audience that showed up, and he didn't know who I was. So Max, I don't think they're the mainstream anymore. I think we
The
are the
legacy
mainstream
media.
now.
The
Yeah, I think
legacy
they're
media.
legacy media. That's what we can call them. It's something from the past. And I think what's going on with them is when you don't tell the truth and you go ahead and push agendas and narratives, people are going to learn it and they're going to see it. And you can only lie to people so many times before they distrust you. And that's happened. I think that shift has happened now. Yes, I had a media pass. Yes, I'm accredited by the Independent Press Gallery out of Calgary. So I do have some accreditation, and I am being recognized in things like the AGM and courtrooms all the way to Ontario as accredited media now. So I wouldn't call them mainstream anymore. I think you, me, others like us that get out, tell the truth, do it raw, do it live, we are the mainstream, because this is what people actually want. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. Sometimes we have to correct what we talk about. Sometimes we do it the next day. Sometimes we do it right away.
Mhm.
Online, we do it streaming, but it's fair. We're doing our best. We have no controllers. Nobody's telling us what we can and can't say yet. I know Ottawa's working on some bills to do exactly that. But when it comes to behind the scenes, we're very raw, which means,
Yeah.
we're not professional, we're not polished. We have typos, we make mistakes, but we do our best to correct them. I think we're the mainstream now. That would be my position. I think it's shifted. Uh, we are the main source for information. when it comes to people that are seeking truth. And
Yeah,
more
and
people are cutting the cable and they stopped watching those other channels.
yeah, and one of the things I kind of surprised me is that we are slowly but surely taking the idea of control of information, the idea that people like yourself, like even somebody with the camera, like when I
Mhm.
started, I don't know, you've started videotaping like with a cell phone, and that's what you have. Now you're getting to new equipment, you're getting to new resources. Uh, so all is on and on and on, to the point where now the legacy media, I have to double check because I put on my nose mainstream media. I have to stretch it out and put legacy media now because I was thinking on the mainstream there.
Yeah,
But
they're not
yeah, it's
mainstream anymore.
no, exactly. And it's the idea of taking control of the information that is available from everybody who has time, resources to basically become your own media station, if you will, which is kind of cool. Um, let's talk about still the media aspect. What do you think could be a strategy to effectively replace the mainstream media? Legacy media. You have to correct me. The
It'll
legacy
take some
media.
time.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, absolutely. I know. I know. I understand it. What do you think? Because right now, what I've seen is that people who are watching the legacy media are tuned to their TV sets, like on their DVR sets, like from whatever cable company, whatever it is. So there's some technical challenges to watch content like from yourself, from myself, and all the alternative ones or the mainstream ones. What do you think is the challenge to what actually prevents the adoption of like people watching us, basically?
There's a few factors, and I think what you're seeing is things are changing. One is the way it's presented. So, you want somebody sitting in a vehicle, swearing and yelling at a camera, losing their cool, losing the angles, kind of not friendly for the family, things that you can't just leave on in the background and you're more concerned about. We've shifted from that kind of streaming to setting up a bit of a studio, and you got a bit of a camera now, and you got some audio, you got a mixer max, and you're providing a higher quality presentation, so you're doing a better job where you can just leave it on the background, and if your kids hear it, you're not going to be concerned about some bad words or anything like that. So we're
Okay, I
making that
see.
shift on the presentation. We're also shifting on the platform side of things. So how many platforms are you on? Are you on X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, others? Being able to reach those audiences and getting out there. And you're starting to see some of the legacy media start to use those kind of platforms too now, because they understand that the audience is shifting there.
Mhm.
When you get into some of those platforms that are available on smart TVs, via the Roku device, via Samsung TV, if you're able to have, go watch me on YouTube, and the people pull up the smart TV app, suddenly they're now on the TV. And if you have the good presentation where the audio sounds good, it is friendly for all audiences. You may have very complicated and deep conversations, but you can have conversations without the yelling, the screaming, the swearing. If you
Mm.
do that, the presentation and the platform, you start to grow an audience that goes across age ranges, and they're less of the niche or the fringe type of people who are just looking for truth. You're starting to reach the people that would have traditionally been legacy media consumers. And as TVs evolved, internet connections evolved, and people's comfort level with the apps on the TVs, you're seeing a shift of content like ours to go from online, from phones to computers and laptops, all the way to the bigger screens on TV now. And when you get in things like
Mm.
memberships, and you provide subscriptions in order to keep the lights on, and you have the platforms that provide that, there's a few out there, but the one I use is Locals. They also have apps for smart TVs, so we're able to provide exclusive content and more protected content, not so much public, so we can have different types of conversations, like what's
Mhm.
going on in the court that we can't talk about in public. We can do it in a private membership. These are all
Mm.
new ways to get there. And I think the entire audience, North America wide, is shifting to that. They're cutting their cable. They're not buying cable anymore. They're moving to streaming services. And if you are one of the options on the streaming services, and you're in a professional type of manner, and you've got good content, good guests, and you're regular with it, I think you can build a great audience that way. And genuine. There's a huge desire at this stage for people to find genuine content to consume. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're at that tipping point now. Just like mainstream media is no longer mainstream, it's legacy. People consume via streaming now, but streaming is available on the TV and many different platforms that we have access to with things like StreamYard. StreamYard is a fantastic
Mm.
tool for that.
And I watched even on my own statistics on my end, I watched that about 30 to 35% of my viewership, at least on YouTube, are smart TVs, like the
Mhm.
Roku's, yeah. So I actually have
And
a
that's
number
growing.
about,
That's growing. Yeah,
and it is
YouTube is
growing.
growing that on purpose.
Oh yeah, and it's good. And it's good that, and this is what you can agree on this. And you like, I like that you touch on that subject. Is that back then in 2022 during the convoy, I was a volunteer, by the way, in the convoy because I speak French. Um,
Mm.
and what kind of helped me was because I was doing translation over there. But I started to see a lot of the F Trudeau ones pretty much all the time. But now, as we're getting towards, I think what you're mentioning, I think we can agree on that, is that we're basically professionalizing ourselves, becoming more professional, more stable in their presentation, behaving more like a TV station, like a professional TV station at a fraction of a cost from the legacy ones. But I think that if we were able to provide good sound, good quality, um, you can basically compete, and also with sharing your content with multiple platforms, that it's basically a game changer for media basically, right? So that's kind of like, that's how we see things, at least for FCAN, for Freedom Canada. But that's why you mentioned that as well too. You were so you are on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, I guess, X,
Rumble,
obviously.
X, yeah, LinkedIn, Twitch.
Oh, really? You're on Twitch as well too.
Mhm.
That's good. What are your largest platforms? Like if you have a stat, where do you get the most engagement?
X, hands down, by
X.
far. X for sure.
Oh,
Yeah, it's X and then sometimes Facebook or YouTube, and then Rumble would be the fourth place one. But X, hands down, like 5 or 6 times more audience there.
okay, I see. And that's good. I'm getting, like, when I started doing videos, I was starting on YouTube and on X. So I'm get pretty much 50-50 on both platforms. Then Facebook and Rumble is getting all the rest. Um, Another subject, which is subject number 3, censorship. And this is that in your case, in my case, going to affect us directly right on the bat
Mhm.
with the censorship. With all the new laws, Bill C8 and Bill C9 specifically. How do you
Yeah, it goes.
think? Yeah, go ahead.
No, no. How do you think?
How do you think that censorship will be implemented against?
Vigorously. Okay, it's going to be implemented vigorously because one of the things about the new media, the new mainstream media, is it's not controlled, and they're going to try and find ways to do it. Some examples of the censorship I faced already would be YouTube. So from 2022 to about mid 2025, I had a lot of trouble even just staying on YouTube. I went through 2 channels. I started a third channel, and we
Really?
worked really hard to kind of keep certain parts of the conversation to later when we jumped off of YouTube in our show. Because if you talked about something like facts prior to mid 2025, if you just even talked about it, that was the end of your channel. You get a strike for misinformation, medical misinformation. So there was censorship there, and you definitely had to be careful. I've never had a problem on Facebook. Other people do. Other people get shut off on Facebook or Facebook jailed. I've never actually had that issue, and we've had some pretty candid conversation over the years on there. But we do get throttling, and we certainly get some sort of banning on Facebook from time to time. It depends on, I think, the guest. Like when I bring on a Dr. Makis, we definitely had throttling. But when I bring on somebody who's less well known, we have better numbers. X for a while was difficult. We would be shadow banned on there. for a lot of us stuff, and we still do. I got to be honest with you, since
Really?
maybe about the election, so April 2025 or even March, we've noticed some throttling and shadow banning on X. These are all types of censorship because it's telling you what you can and can't say. And if you want to play the algorithm and maybe use some AI to tell you what you should and shouldn't say and how you should use these words and which ones to avoid, well, then you're falling into the censorship regime and playing the game there. We don't. We don't. We just take our chances to have honest conversations. Other than for a bit there, we would stay away from certain words until we turned off our YouTube, and then we would just open up because Rumble and the rest didn't have those kind of problems. But that would be one form of censorship. Another one that I've run into as a journalist is censorship in the courts through publication bans and
Oh,
and the requirements there. And publication ban literally means you're not allowed to talk about. So that's censorship. So when we were covering, or I was covering the courts, anything in the pre-trial, if it's a jury trial, with the jury not there, you can't talk about. And I came very close, Max, to being charged for violating a court order for publication ban when it came to the Coots Trio trial. So on April 2nd, 2023, it would be 2023 or 2024. So last year, early last year, I was covering the Coots Trio trial. That's Marco van Hugenbos, George Jensen, and Alex Van Herk. And all I did was I said, "Hey, look, we're getting started up with this trial. There's two applications. I can say this now freely. There's two applications. One is to provide the request to the judge to get permission to allow the jury to know that they can ask questions. So there's an application to ask the judge to let the jury know they can ask questions. Spoiler alert, the judge turned that down, denied that application. And the second application was to inform the jury about nullification. Jury nullification is legal in Canada, but juries don't know about it. And what that means is you don't have to vote what the law says. You don't have to render a verdict according to the law. You can render a verdict according to your conscience and beliefs. That's what nullification means. It's legal in Canada, rarely used because the jury is not notified that they have that power. So the second application was to let the jury know that. So all I said on my 50-minute show was there were two applications: one to request permission to let the jury know about asking questions, and two, request permission to let the jury know about nullification. And for that, the very next day, the Crown Prosecutor Stephen Johnston, brought to the court's attention my show, and he brought some clips for my show to let the judge know
cool.
that I violated the publication ban. And he wanted me prosecuted under 187 of the Criminal Code, which is a court order violation, and the penalty for that is up to 2 years imprisonment. And he was pushing for that. The judge,
Shit.
thankfully, asked to watch the entire episode, the entire 50 minutes, instead of the 1 minute 30 that he clipped for the judge. The judge then took a break, watched my entire episode. And thankfully for me, I'm not a rage type of commentator, and I was actually very fair to the judge and very fair to the process. So I think that assisted me, because if I was upset and calling the judge names and using a lot of profanity,
You will
it
go
may
to
have
other
gone the other
direction.
way. But the judge came back and said, "Look, he did violate it. He failed miserably on staying outside of the violation of the publication ban, but he did try. He failed miserably, but he did try. So I got a warning, and the warning was, if you do it again, we'll bring forward this violation," because he did call it a violation of the publication ban. "We'll bring forward that violation and the new violation and prosecute you under 187, so for 2 years imprisonment." So that's when I started a private members channel, which it wasn't open to the public, just to be sure that if I'm going to provide information, it's not to the public and it doesn't violate the publication ban. But that's another type of censorship. And then the last one that you referred to is legal, like bills, C11, C18. Now we see C9. Like, what can you say? Can you be religious? Can you talk about your beliefs? What is hate? Like, we're headed in that direction. Bill 63, before the proroguing of the parliament, was one we were all paying
Yes.
attention to, because that was also going to touch on us. So yeah, that's another type of censorship, when the government creates laws to shut down conversation, reclassify conversation, and puts penalties on conversation. So we're fighting those as well. And there's going to be a fourth one, which, as a tech guy, I know you're going to understand. They're going to go after platforms. At some point, things like StreamYard is going to require your ID, is going to require who exactly are you. You can't just open an account. You're going to have to provide government issued ID because they want to have the ability to
Mm,
throttle or block you at that level. So
yeah.
you're going to see that one start coming soon too. So as a journalist that's trying to get this information out, there's a lot of different ways we're being censored: platform, courts, uh, the law, so the government, and then future it's going to be our
Technological
distribution.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
technological ones. And that is particularly one as somebody who works in IT and has a good understanding of. I think you and
Mhm.
I were very techy guys. It's the implementation, and also because let's be realistic, a lot of our audience is not necessarily technically inclined. I mean, in the sense that for most of the audience here, at least I can tell from here, it's very hard for them to go to, like, for example, like you say, hey, go to Jason Lavigne, I'm on XYZ website. I have the same problem as well. So by when that comes to play is that if the government starts to shut us down by destroying or by removing internet access, like even if we're removing internet access or removing platform access, that's going to be harder for us to reach our audience as well. So my guess, my what I'm telling you this right now, same for Jason Levine, same for myself, systematically go to every single platform. Like for example, I watch when I follow Jason Levine, I follow him on Facebook, I follow him on YouTube, I follow him on Rumble, I follow him on X, all the platforms you can possibly. Same for Freedom Candor, because if one platform goes down, like we can at least relay the information on the platforms. Because what I tend to see, I don't know if you agree on that, is that we have people on one platform but not the other. Lots of people on Facebook, but but not so many people on X. So if the government starts to shut down platforms, you can at least balance them out to other platforms. So it's very important that the audience also can do some heavy lifting on that as well too, right? So that's one of the technical challenges that we have, and also legal challenges with seal Bill C8, Bill C9. Bill C8 is the one that is kind of, it tells, it forces it allows the government to shut down internet access right off
Correct.
the bat, so they can call Telus, Shaw. I don't know for Starlink if they're on that
And by the
game.
way, that's warrantless, and that's without a judge involved. They can do that. That's a minister level decision.
It's just insane. And Bill
No due
C9,
process.
which is debated right now at the House of Commons, which
Mhm.
actually anticipates
Criminalizes speech.
jail time, but just doing, like, if you want, like, just think about those pastors, like, who are doing services and they show the live stream their entire sermons on YouTube. What's going to happen to them? They're going to be jailed. That's going to be very, very dangerous time we're getting into. So censorship is really ramping up very quickly, very
And there's
quickly.
a fifth censorship I wouldn't mind bringing up to you, Max, and that's censorship. That's when you will censor yourself because you're
Oh,
worried about what will happen. So that would be the fifth level. So maybe you won't say men cannot be women after Bill 9 is passed, or maybe you will keep some of your scripture to yourself and not put it on the public waves. Self censorship is another horrible one because you're doing it and you feel compelled to do it. And that one's going to be a difficult one because the consequences to not self censoring could be jail time in the near future here in Canada. 12,000 people have been charged in the UK for what they posted online. It's the number one country right now for prosecuting and charging speech. But I don't, I don't see Canada, sitting back and waiting. I think Canada is going to follow in that kind of footsteps. So I think we'll
yeah,
see that Germany's up on that list too. France is on that list. So these are all, Western countries, ones that we trade with, have friendly relations with. And I would not be surprised if Canada starts doing exactly that, going after people for their speech. And so there'll be a lot of self censoring happen. We saw some of that
yeah,
during the COVID time. People would say, "You don't want to get one of these," and then just point to their arm, right, instead of saying the word "vax." you're going to see a lot more self-censoring happen too.
Yeah, and if you think that COVID was bad in 2021, 2022, just ran for the new big round of censorship. And very important to say as well too is to support people like yourself, people like myself, people like Unacceptable Fringe, all the mainstream now. I had to put into my vocabulary now. um, you have to subscribe to those platforms, support them as much as you can, because we don't have the same resources as CTV, CBC, who are paid by our tax dollars. We are just guys in our basement basically doing this, right? And many of us have jobs, they have families, many people doing this part-time. So it's very important to support people like Jason and myself and all those media platforms as well. Um, Another subject I want to touch base on that, and this is going to change little things a little bit about the grassroots. Um, I just want to check with you because your audience. I remember you were in, was it in Spruce Grove? I believe you're doing Independence Talk. We have Vince Byfield, David Parker in Spruce Grove, and you were talking about independence, obviously. But at some point, you were talking about, oh, this is my audience, like people in the audience, like facing the room there. My question is regards to the grassroots. What's your definition of grassroots specifically, and how can your platform adapt to the needs of the grassroots? I don't know if it was specific enough.
Good question, Max, because sometimes that term gets mixed up. I think grassroots is anybody who has a independent heart. They like faith, family, future, and freedom. These are all things that are important to them. They're not controlled by anybody. They take the time to understand something, and they want to see change. So they want to get active and involved in it. If you put all of that together, and you're just a regular person like Max and I, then you would be considered grassroots because you want to see change, you want to get involved in it, and you understand what it is that you're looking at. You're not following the main or the legacy media. See, it's tough to get that term out of your head. The legacy media. You're not fooled by narratives or agendas, and you have a clear focus on what's going to happen for the future. So you're likely focused on your children's future or your grandchildren's future or just the next generation in general. And you're willing to sacrifice too, because to be a grassroots person, it's difficult. It's difficult to let your neighbors know that. There's a lot of people that don't want the status quo to change, and they definitely look down on anybody who thinks we need some change. So it requires some sacrifice. And I think the last piece of a grassroots person would be courage. You have to have the courage to go ahead and stand up because it's not easy. It definitely is not easy to stand on just your own 2 feet and take a few steps forward. So I think a grassroots person has all of those, some courage. They have a little bit of a sacrifice and they have a desire to see some change and they see what's going on. You put all of that together and I believe you would be a legitimate grassroots person. You don't have to be standing in front of a microphone talking to an audience, but being in that audience and then talking to people around you would be very, very sufficient. Do the action portion of that, taking an action. Reaching out to your MLAs, your MPs, your councillors to have conversations and push forward what you believe, and sharing information, whether you create it or you find it somewhere else, understand it, and then pass it on. But being able to share that information also contributes to being grassroots. They're not
So
sponsored by anybody, so there's no group that actually coordinates, no union that brings them together to tell them what to say and what signs to hold. They genuinely are individuals. They don't have organizations that tell them what to say, but there are sometimes organizations like the APP that provide information. But one thing you know, Max, and I know, APP doesn't hand out signs and tell people what to say and when to show up. They invite people to come and join and consume and understand. That's a very different thing. But you have unions that will bust people in and tell them what to say, and they don't even believe it. They're just there for the 2 or 3 hours. Those would not be grassroots. Those are activists,
mhm.
sometimes paid activists. But grassroots are people that go back to their home, take what they learned back, and start to share it with their neighbors, their loved ones, their friends and family. That would be someone who I would call grassroots. Reaching them is difficult because traditionally we're having difficulties. Another piece of censorship is finding venues that will host you. You know, this is very
Yes.
difficult. We are all over Alberta. There's a couple thousand venues where you should be able to just book it. It's difficult. It's difficult to do that.
Hmm.
So having
And
in-person
that's what
meetings.
happened in Spruce Group, I believe, right?
Yeah, so that particular event you're referring to, it was originally at I want to say the Pioneer Museum. I think that's where it was originally booked. And
I don't
then
recall.
within 2 days of the venue of the event itself, it was canceled. There was a lot of pressure from a certain group in the public. Some of the elected officials, apparently, they deny it now, but they also admitted it at the same time. Were involved in applying pressure to have that event canceled, and
Hmm.
then eventually, last minute, it was moved to a hotel. That's a fantastic example, Max, where it's difficult to reach grassroots because the establishment doesn't want grassroots because grassroots provides change to the establishment. It's power
Another.
to yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And another form of censorship is financial censorship.
Yeah, well, that certainly would be a roadblock, resource access, and having people come out and provide that or have it. Like you don't get grants to have independence or self-determination series of conversations. You rely completely on grassroots contributions. So people stepping up for that. But yeah, it's difficult to reach them sometimes. That's why we have to leverage things like this show that you're doing right now. I'd like to encourage more people to do what Max is doing: is grab a microphone, grab a camera, get some streaming going, and get out there. We need a lot more people to do that. Because the more of us out there doing that, the harder it becomes for them to shut everybody off and shut
Hmm.
everybody up.
And
So
willing to
I'd like to
help
see more
them,
people do
willing
that.
to help them. I mean, it's almost to the technological aspect because a lot of people and has this tendency, and I think it's natural to have with the cell phone. Like behind me is just it's camera number two. I call the infrared. That's the camera I use to do live streamings when I do events for APP and that sort of thing, and it's the technical aspect. Like probably started with a cell phone, with everybody that has started like that. But I think we have this notion of helping other people in other on aspects and calling things out if things are not right in a respectful manner. And that is,
Mm.
I think it's a healthy balance as well. M- my
And on that
definition.
note, Max, like you could be at the AGM, you can see a patch panel sitting there for the audio, but you don't have the equipment. So you call up Max, and Max shows up with a mixer, and boom, you can now patch the audio into the stream, and everybody gets to share that experience. So you're correct, and that is also part of the new media, the new mainstream. We help each other. We absolutely help each other. We'll be on each other's show. We'll promote each other. Our events. We'll have each of us at it. Like I'm doing an event January 10th in Red Deer, and already 4 or 5 media people have reached out to come and cover it. And of course,
I
I'm
will be there.
expecting you.
I will be
You're
there.
going
I
to be
haven't
there for
till.
sure.
I will be there for
Yeah,
sure. I'll be there.
yeah.
I just
So
haven't
yeah,
sent the text.
that's very helpful too. Um,
Yeah.
you don't get CBC reaching out. You know, CTV Global. They don't come to these events, but 4 or 5, sometimes 6 different new media or independent media does show up, and that's very very helpful. And we do work
Oh
with each
yeah.
other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of like this because we're essentially the same objective, where is to inform the people who are not necessary, who can't be there. It's good to have this healthy balance. And I like the definition of grassroots because that's kind of similar to what I have personally speaking. My definition is that we have all those groups, like I give names like the APP, Parents for Choice, the Alberta Parents Association, all those groups. And I think that we as mainstream media now, we need to help those groups as well. So when they need help, if they need support, if they need uh, to um we need to be there logistically, technologically speaking, to those groups, in addition to the people in the grassroots, to gonna help them what to do next. Because, like, for example, APP. APP is defined as a non-profit organization, and their mission is to educate people on the notion on the rationale of Alberta independence. Right,
Hmm.
that's their mission statement. So, like people like yourself, people like myself, are helping them to relay the message. You might have another group like Alberta, like Parents for Choice for Education. I just put in names here. If John O'Brien watches, I say hi. Same thing. We need to help those guys to, do their things either technologically or doing a live stream, whatever. I think that's gonna make. We need to create this some sort of um um some sort of like I lose my train of thought here. This We need to create this environment so they can help their people. We help them as well, and I think that's gonna create a environment where the legacy media like the CTV, they just can't compete. They just
That's
there
right.
for them to the news. But we've integrate into those groups, helping them out. That's going to create a more positive and perhaps more lasting experience for all of us as well too.
It becomes
And
resilient, and we certainly help each other get better at it. Tips, tricks, sound, video, stream, platforms, how do you connect them, what you should do, maybe what you should try to avoid. Stop swearing first thing in the morning. Maybe you can be more family friendly and still be, because there's the emotional trigger, but there's also the intellectual trigger. And I
mm,
find that the intellectual trigger, you gain a stronger audience. They're a little bit more loyal, and they keep coming back because they like to be intellectually stimulated. And that would be one tip I would say to people. I think the day for raging is over. We've now stepped up our game, and you're seeing things like Making a Killing documentary that came out. It's well produced and it's doing a good job. You see Greg Wycliffe, who is putting together the Hate Network, or that movie that he.
anti-hate network.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great to see because you're stepping up the production, you're stepping up the quality, and you're becoming the mainstream when you do stuff like that. These are
Isn't
all
that
great things
cool?
to be seen.
Isn't that
It is.
cool? I got very impressed by the video from the Critical Compass. Shout out to them if they're watching. The video that they
Yes.
made from the RGM was like amazing,
Yeah,
professional,
and
good
that's
sound.
one of the groups that will be there January 10th as well. They've reached out, they're gonna be there.
Oh, you see, that's good. But yeah, it's this concept of stepping up the game, and that kind of correlates to the idea of what actually is gonna step up the game, and that is technological. We went from people sharing on a Facebook page with a cell phone doing this to
Mhm.
actually becoming like a studio where people can relate it to and help each other. So I really like that aspect as well. We're gonna change gears a little bit on the fifth gear. Yeah, I
Sure.
drive stick shift, so sorry for
Mm.
yeah.
So did I. I learned on it.
Drive stick shift is the fifth gear, fifth subject, Alberta independence, and I think that's gonna be a hot bottom subject right now, especially after we just heard from the churches that I think we have the go ahead to start collecting signatures from January 26th, I believe, right?
Well, so Bill 14 was third reading yesterday. It's going to be voted on and then royal assent. We still do that here in Alberta. We have royal assent. And then at that point, it's law. So I'm not sure the exact date of that, but it's
Mhm.
expected to be in the next week or so, sometime in December. And then the APP, or either, I believe they have to refile their question at that point because it's under the new legislation and statute. But it is expected to be kind of fast tracked because it's already been through part of the process. And if everything works out as quickly as it can, you're correct. We should be expecting the APP to start collecting their signatures in January, which means there'll be 120 days to do that. And then we'll have another 30 days or so as they validate signatures. And then the government will have to make a decision in the committee and have a conversation about what to do. Excuse me. And if everything kind of lines up the way everybody hopes, early autumn, October possibly is when the vote could be happening. We could be seeing a vote on the referendum in October.
I- I'm just thinking right now, just thinking about it. That's gonna be awesome. Gonna be awesome. What do you think is gonna be the challenge that we're gonna have with the vote with the referendum and the vote collection? What do you think is gonna be the challenges that will
The
that maybe?
establishment, yeah, the establishment that does not want to see Alberta go. A lot of people understand that financially, Alberta is supporting a good chunk of Canada. It's like one of the major legs in Canada, and if you take that out, the table is going to become very unstable. So the Laurentian elite, that the little corridor from Toronto all the way to Montreal, it's going to be very concerned about Alberta independence. You're going to see the legacy media run a hardcore fear campaign. They're
Oh
going to
yeah.
target likely the seniors and say, "Look, you're going to lose your pension." They're going to target the hardworking middle class and say that they're going to destroy the economy of Alberta. You're going to have recession. They're going to use that landlocked term a lot. All the tropes that we've been seeing come up all over the place. You're going to see that happen, and it's going to
What
be
about the
relentless.
immigrants?
Well, I'm not sure how they're going to target immigrants and scare them because you do have to be a Canadian citizen to vote. So I'm not sure if they're going to focus on that one too much, but they're certainly going to target the seniors. They're going to target people heading towards their retirement who paid into the Canadian pension plan. They're going to lie to them about that. They've already started to do that. Like Danielle Smith, she did a radio interview. They dubbed over it in French, and then the headline that they created was Danielle Smith is going to canvass against Alberta separation. And she didn't say that, but
No.
that's what the headline was. We
Oh,
picked up that.
oh, and let's talk about that specifically because I want to talk about that specifically. Given that they actually said that at Radio Canada, which is the French CBC, the reason why they're doing this is because right now in Quebec specifically, and I know because I used to live there, they have their own referendum process starting going there's are about to start. So the incumbent party, the CAC, is actually trying to draft a constitutional, pretty much like APP is doing type of thing, and they don't want to lose because now they're essentially in the polls, they're down on the toilet. They're very bottom, rock bottom. They're very low. These are the guys who
Yeah,
push the COVID narrative up in 2021, 2022. They were the guys who were pushing the COVID hysteria to the roof. They were jailing people. They were arresting people just for driving the car outside the curfew. They were very, 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 very abusive. Now they lose their common ground. On the other hand, you have the PQ, the Parti Québécois, who was essentially pushing the referendum vote more and more and more and more. They're
right.
essentially stealing the votes from the CAC. Now they're doing
Earning.
all those stuff. Yeah, basically. And now what they're saying is that through CBC, they're telling the people in Quebec that Daniel Smith is against Canada unity or something like that. But they never say that on CBC. They only say that in Radio Canada, in order to sway the vote in Quebec. So this is typical Radio Canada, CBC. I've seen with Maxime Bernier all the time. There is a divergence of opinions between the East and the West, between Quebec specifically and the West. They always say something in Radio Canada in French that is completely opposite from CBC. This is typical CBC behavior. By the way, just I'll point that out because I've seen it all the time. But yeah,
Yeah. So
uh,
what we did with that one is we saw that French headline, we translated it to English so we could understand it, and we raised concerns around it. And I sent the screenshots and the question to the premier's office to say, "Hey, can you comment on this?" Because a lot of people are pretty frustrated about
mm,
this headline, and we want to confirm this headline. Her office responded to me very quickly and said, "Oh, she didn't say that. Hang on, we're going to be doing an official statement shortly." So it looked like we kind of notified them about what it said in French because I don't think they were aware. Very few people in Alberta actually saw it, but a lot of people were sharing the French translation of the headline. So a lot of people were very upset about that.
oh
Then her
yeah.
office, yeah, then her office contacted the CBC. CBC had to issue a correction because that's not what she said. And then they responded back to us with the official statement. We provided that to the public. And then I asked for the English version of what she said because her interview was in English, but they dubbed French over what she was talking about, and you couldn't hear what she was saying. So I got a response
Oh,
back that said, "We'll release the English. CBC will release the English version tomorrow. Is that okay?" And I said, "No, we have a morning show. I want to release this right away." So then CBC was forced to go ahead and release it that night. And then at about 10:30 that night, I received a copy of the English version, and she absolutely did not say that at all. So they absolutely were confusing people on purpose. I hope maybe something comes out of it. Maybe they should be sued for that. But they issued a correction. We got the English version, and then we put it out there to let people know. Danielle Smith did not say that. She actually maintained exactly what she's been saying for a couple of years now, which is a sovereign Alberta in a united Canada. You said nothing about campaigning. You said nothing about taking a side. She said nothing about Lusakic's petition. But although that's what the headline said. So they changed that headline, Max. I'm not sure if you saw the French change, but it changed to 4 highlights for the year-end review, something along those lines. So they changed it from Danielle Smith is going to campaign against an Alberta separation referendum. They changed that headline to 4 highlights for the year-end review. So
oh yeah,
they got caught.
and I got phone calls from people down east saying, because I talk a lot because I have a lot of friends down east, and they know me about my stance up in the pencil stuff, and all of a sudden I got those text messages and phone calls saying, "Hey, looks like Daniel Smith is turning back on you." I'm like, wait a second, what's going on here? So I was doing some research, and even I was with my old fair deal of damage control here. So just FYI,
Yeah.
but that is typical CBC. What I've seen here and I've seen in the past is typical CBC. They say one thing in French and one thing in English. So we have to be careful with CBC specifically in Radio Canada.
So a lot of people here in Alberta felt silly. They're like, "Oh man, I believed their headline." So going forward, there's going to be a lot more skepticism about anything CBC
Oh,
releases.
absolutely. And if I give a piece of advice, this is just for CBC, but might be applicable for other medias as well. When you hear something like what just happened from CBC, they're saying one thing, one to the other. Don't take it as it is the same day. Wait probably 2 or 3
72-hour rule.
days. Yeah. And another example of that, when I was doing a live stream, I recorded a live stream independence movement, not EPP related. Michael Wagner was there, Corey Morgan was there. That was in Brooks, I think in May.
Mhm.
I recorded that event and I shared it. During that time, there were 2 people from CBC who were there just to record bits and pieces of the meeting. I haven't read the article yet, but I've heard from people who came to me that CBC did an slander job against that meeting, and that did a very poor reporting on that. I haven't seen the article. I just as people that I've just heard about it, just
Mhm.
FYI. But it's very disingenuous what CBC is doing, especially with the independent stuff. They're actually trying to gaslight people and believe that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um,
And that's one of the things as we got into this independent conversation is watch for it. That's going to happen. You're going to see that go, especially when the referendum signatures start. And then when the referendum itself is happening, you're going to see actual attempts. You'll see billboards scaring people. You guys are going to go into poverty for 20 years. Russia is going to attack you. They're going to say things like that to scare everybody. So don't be surprised. They're going to even say foreign influence, foreign funding. This is not a grassroots effort. It's all coming from outside of Alberta. They're going to say all of those things because they're already starting to right now.
oh yeah.
As we get closer to that referendum and then the referendum date for the vote, you're just going to see that go like crazy. So people like you and me have to do our very best to get out there and provide corrections and hold them accountable, like we did with the CBC Radio Canada headline. And we got to stay on top of that. I've seen other independent media people, that's at least they call themselves that, replicating that CBC headline well after it was debunked. So yeah, we're gonna see that happen all over the place, Max. I
Mhm.
guarantee you there'll be billboards that are
Absolutely.
misinformation.
What I kind of worries about the independent stuff is that the way I see things, I don't know. That's one of my questions here. Is yeah, we're gonna see the attacks from the legacy media, attacks from the unions potentially,
Hmm.
which lets that I'm starting to see that the independence game in Alberta will be pretty much like Freedom Convoy in 2.0 in the sense that we're gonna have actors and Kathy Fest was saying that she's watching that. I say hi because I told her that I was with the live stream. My worry is that we have new people joining APP. You have new people gravitating towards those groups like APP and all those guys who haven't been here for a long time. So for them, the idea of grassroots was only started since they joined APP and they're very fresh new to the game. And my worry is that there are going to be some actors, just like happened in Coots, that are going to, should I say, cause issues within the existing groups, cause division, cause and spread false rumors about some people. Pretty much like the convoy, there might be some people who want to say nasty things and they say, hey, that was in an APP event. Somebody took a picture and that gets all over the internet. And all those is like a smear campaign against the independence movement. Is that something that you actually consider or have a thought of that?
Happens all the time, Max. And you'll see these people come up to you at an APP event or another rally, and they'll come up to you and say, they'll say something like, "Hey, I've got a bunch of guys and we're ready to take up arms." And it's like, whoa, this is not what we're talking about here. This is a peaceful democratic process. It's legal and there's absolutely nothing to hide. So anybody that comes up against any of that, what I just said there, a peaceful democratic process that's legal with nothing to hide. If that's not what you fit in, you don't belong in part of the movement, because that's what the movement is. So if anybody wants to be not peaceful, or they want to be illegal, or they want to hide, or they don't want to be democratic, then they're not part of it. So the true grassroots people fit into the category that I just said there. Everybody else, and they don't even have to be actors. They could just be unstable. They could just be frustrated. That's where you can kind of see where that happens. Now, the convoy did a fantastic job, actually, Max, in Ottawa, of finding those people and then rooting them out, and they were just gone. Because every once in a while, you would see this video of like, who is this guy? Like, we don't know who he is, and he's talking about storming the parliament. This is not what we're here for. It's very clear
No.
that this person is not doesn't belong. So they were very good at identifying that, because they had the exact same thing. Don't throw a snowball. Don't be upset. Don't be violent. Be peaceful. Be loving. And if they don't fit in that category, then you know that they don't belong there. And I haven't seen many genuine people that are not willing to be patient with the process and peaceful with the process. But I have had people come up to me and say, "Look, I'm ready to be not peaceful." And I'm like, "Well, you're talking to the wrong guy and you're in the wrong place, because that's not what this is about."
Mhm.
That's one way to
And
identify them.
yeah, and I know that even for myself, I think we all are frustrated with the whole situation. We've been abused economically. We've been abused on all different
Sure.
levels.
But
There's
we're so
always
close
some.
to the goal line. Don't drop it now.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's what keeps me like right now. I'm starting to see all things happening. I think that it is fair to say that we all feel certain things. It's part of. I think we're all being affected by this abusive relationship with auto. We all going through this right now. If you are worried about certain things, it's better to talk in private. Like if you have a good friend of yours, like, hey Max, I just need to vent. I need to vent, Max. Listen to the vent, listen to that, but not in public. But I think it's saying to I think we're all frustrated at this point of time with all different things. But I think it's better to be um to be calm in their situations, because I've seen people, even when I'm doing the town hall meetings, I got people who came to me and they were completely distressed. I saw people who are essentially in tears or everything's happened. I was taking down my equipment, and it was guys like it needed somebody to have a shoulder to cry on and be
Mhm.
prepared for that, because it's normal. We're all humans. We're all being abused by Ottawa. It's fair to say, but to behave differently, because what you just said, like being acted differently and violent or outside of the scope of that, is, I think that's the what we need to watch for, just like the convoy. So that's what you've seen about that as well too.
And another
Another,
distraction, sorry, another
yeah, go
distraction on
go.
that point is when people are trying to create division. What we don't need, and let me be very clear about this, we don't need unity to get this job done. We need alliances. We need people that are aligned to the same goal. And to get there, the goal here is to get the referendum through the government in front of us for Alberta to vote on. That's the goal here, and get a yes on it. That's the goal. It doesn't matter how we get there. You may have a group that wants 51st state, and the first step is to get independence. And then we can talk about the different options once we get there. So let's align. You can have a group of people that's very angry and very frustrated. You can still align. You don't have to be unified. I think if anybody is out there trying to push the only way to get this done is to be unified, that's somebody that I think is actually trying to cause division. Because what you're going to end up doing if you try to go down that road to unify is you'll never agree on one message. You're never going to agree on one leader. You're never going to agree on one path forward. Therefore, it's going to stall. Like you're going to create the hurdle that's going to kill it. So let's just align. So if you are the Republican Party of Alberta and you support them, great. They have the exact same goal. That's a referendum, yes, and then let's talk about having a republic. If you are 51st state, you have the same goal. Referendum, yes, and let's talk about our options and who we align with. So let's look at alliances. This is what
Yeah,
won World War II. It wasn't unity. There wasn't one country that took on Germany. It was an alliance of multiple countries that took on Germany. This is what we need to win this one. That's the quickest path to getting this done. And we don't actually have to like each other. Okay. We really don't. We just have to focus on what we need to get to done. Because when you get two or more people together, with the exception of this podcast, because you and I love each other, but when you get two or more people together, you will eventually get some friction and things will happen. You may not like the tone of somebody. You may not like a particular answer. Somebody says Commonwealth and another one says Republic. Like, should we really stop at this stage because there's a dispute over that? No. Let's get
no.
to the referendum. Let's get the vote done. And then we get to sit down in what's called the Constitutional Convention and hash out the rest. You're
Oh,
going to
that's
see
another
parties
point.
form. Yeah, you're going to see parties form. You're going to see different people align with different people at that stage. And you will see some unity around certain things. But to get to that point, we don't need unity. So be very cautious about people that are demanding unity. They're demanding a single voice come forward. We need a single leader. Anybody that says stuff like that is actually trying to slow it down and possibly cause the entire thing to fall apart. Because the quickest way to make that fall apart is to put all the people together that are leading their own little groups and tell them to fight it out to become the one single leader. It's not going to happen. We shouldn't be doing it. We should have an alliance going forward to get that referendum done, and that's the best way to make sure that we don't have internal fights. We're not trying to take out the other guy and become the leader. We're just focused on the one goal: get that referendum, get that ballot out there, have that date, and vote yes. And I think we'll be successful if we
The
focus
left
that
is
way.
up. Oh yeah, and we need to do what they do in the left. The left, they're doing a very great job at keeping people together. For them, disagreement is for them disagreeing is more damageable than staying like creating an alliance between those groups. Like you have the very left leaning people, but you also have the centrist, and at the
Hmm.
NDP, for example, who don't necessarily agree with the LGBTQ agenda, but perhaps they're more conscious about climate change and all those things. I don't dispute that, but they say themselves if they want to beat the UCP in the next election, they need to discard all the difference in and aiming to a common goal, which is to do the election or whatever case it is.
Yeah.
Same thing with the independence stream. You might agree with certain things like the Commonwealth or the common law, whatever it is, but starts at one point, which is the independence. You have starts at one point, which is getting the signatures, getting the referendum. That's number one. The technicalities as to what we want to do after the vote, that's gonna be after. But we need to get
Constitutional
the
convention. Yeah.
we need to be focused on educating the people, educating people the rationale, getting the vote out. That's priority number one right now if we want to get this thing successfully and without any kind of distractions. The last point I want to touch base on is any heard of collaboration or any talks with people in other provinces, particularly Saskatchewan, because they have their own things going on over there too, right?
Yeah, so Saskatchewan now started up Saskatchewan Prosperity Project. I want to say Brian Wilson. I can pull up his name here because I'm trying to
Brad
have him
Williams.
on my show. Brian Willis?
Brad
Yeah,
Williams.
Brad. Did you say Brad?
Yeah, Brad Williams. I actually am
Yeah,
looking
Brad
forward
Williams.
to.
Correct. Yes.
I'm looking forward to bringing on an interview somehow. It's just somehow next week. I'm just waiting for him
Yep.
to
Yeah,
because
I'm doing
he's
the
doing
same
a lot
thing.
of he's doing a lot of town hall meetings this time as well too. He's very busy. I think today is in Kindersley, I believe. Last week he was on Monday. I think he was in Saskatoon. Who was doing pretty much what Mitch is doing over there.
Right.
And I think that in Alberta, we're way ahead of time over them, but they need some catch up. But also, the legal framework is not the same as we have here in Alberta.
Yeah, so I would love to deep dive into that with him. So I'll have him on soon, I'm sure. So we have Saskatchewan that's heading in that direction now. BC is heading in that direction. So there's a
Ooh.
similar prosperity project. It's a little bit more needs some more maturing because it's really just starting off. But you see the One BC party, that it would be quite the jumping board for a stronger BC and possibly a more
Mm.
independent BC. So Dallas
Interesting.
Brody will be on my show possibly tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, it's going to be next week. So we have those conversations. And then as you talked about earlier in this podcast, Parti Québécois out in Quebec, they actually are on fire. They won 3 by-elections in a row. The polls have them way ahead. And their
Yeah.
promise to Quebec is you vote them in on the provincial level, they're going to bring forward the referendum for separation. And if they win that election on that platform, that's already kind of an indicator how that referendum is going to end up. Because if Quebec gives them a majority government, they're likely going to give them a majority referendum result too. And it's a very different environment for Quebec than it was in 1995. 1995, you had the US against separation for Quebec. They actually were using the media back then, called it a crisis. So you actually had a lot of the media at that time pushing against the idea. That won't be the case this time around. There's a friendly administration in the White House that would absolutely support independence for Quebec, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even BC. So it's a very different environment. And if Alberta's talking and pushing hard at the same time as Quebec, that's a different environment. And I think Ottawa is going to have to figure out how to handle these situations coming up. But BC, it could be well on its way. They're doing a new leader for their Conservative Party. I think Saskatchewan would be right behind Alberta if we're successful. And truth be told, it might actually be Quebec who's the first to actually leave because they're really pushing hard on that. So we'll see how they do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting. I think the next 12 to 24 months, maybe 36 months, are going to be very interesting politically speaking. In
What a time to be
regards,
alive, hey Max? We're watching
uh,
history.
literally, isn't that cool? Like I don't know if you see myself. Sometimes I have dreams about, or I don't know. But sometimes I see myself at the ballot box with the yes or no.
Mhm.
There's a documentary in French. It's called what's the name in French? I don't know the name in English. Forget her, but it's called Le Confort et l'Indifférence. And on that documentary, if anybody wants to watch it, it's a documentary about the referendum in Quebec specifically. And during that documentary, there was a guy who was interviewed and was like, "Look, I was actually crying at the ballot box when there was yes or no. Like that's how things are going to turn up for a
Yeah.
lot of people in here in the West as well. So, what a time to be alive! Oh yeah, what a time to be alive. Any
I know
closing
some
remark?
people that have been waiting
Oh
40 plus years to have this vote, so it's gonna be very
yes,
emotional. Yeah,
yes, I
very
heard
emotional.
that
They're gonna
as
be very
well.
happy.
Oh yeah, I've heard that. I heard people were saying, "This is I'm going." Who literally told me to me, "I'm willing to." This is the possibility of seeing Alberta separating with my own eyes is real.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
real.
and they're all
It's
the ones that remember what Trudeau Senior was doing, the
oh
attack on
yeah.
Alberta from and Dr. Wagner, he provides very good, insight on this, but there's a lot of people that remember what Trudeau Senior did,
Oh
flipping off
yeah.
Alberta from the train, attacking it during the campaign in 1980. Those people didn't forget, and they're looking forward to finally having their say when it comes to a referendum.
And isn't that strange? Because um, from somebody who hasn't lived through those years, so like I'm 35. Okay, I wasn't even in the country when that happened. Okay,
You weren't born.
you weren't even born. I wasn't even
Yeah,
born. But at the
yeah,
same time, you go like and Captain Face was talking about that this concept that
yeah.
um, Alberta and Saskatchewan in Northwest Territories was one province, the province of Buffalo, and Ottawa's response was to create Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories. That's their
Mhm.
response. So all that friction that happened right now happened for at least 120 years, and all that trauma, if you will, get passed through their generations. The people tell their stories as to how that happened, and now we see the end goal 120 years later. It's only when you know the
Absolutely.
history
Yeah,
that is.
and 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 there's some people you can talk about from the '60s they wanted it, the '80s they wanted it, like when there was a reform party, they wanted it. Yeah, Alberta's been fighting hard for a while, been very patient. And Daniel Smith, she said it on my show during the interview. She's never seen the movement as big and as aggressive as it is now. It's the largest she's ever seen it at this stage.
Corey, Corey Morgan, the same thing. Corey
Yeah,
Morgan was saying, I've never seen a group growing as fast as it is right now. Normally, when you
yeah,
have independence movement, it just goes up, grows, and it fizzles out. This time is like all about getting bigger, getting bigger, getting bigger.
mhm,
And I think what kind of helps the independence movement to some extent is the positive message. Like we bring a solution to all the problems that have happened in the last 120 years at least, all those problems that happened because of federal overreach, removing everything. Like even like Canada may have their own, let's say, um, they may have their own censorship laws. Let's say that C8 and C9 passes because people are crossing the floor to the liberals. Yeah. But now let's suppose that Alberta doesn't have all those restrictions, unlike Canada. So basically, Canada will basically fall under its own sin at this point
mhm.
of time, right? So it's going to be a very interesting time. What a time to be alive! Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks, Mister Lavigne?
Well, for starters, you can call me Jason or Jay. I'm happy with that.
Jason?
Um,
Sorry.
yeah, that works fine with me. Yeah, but no, my closing remarks to you first is to congratulate you, Max, for putting this show together and doing it. You're doing a great job. You're having a nice high production. and you can tell that you're putting your heart and soul into it, which is great. So I want to congratulate you. Thank you very
Thanks.
much for having me on. I noticed that when Derek had to change his schedule for you, I know what it's like to have a guest scheduled, and you're like, okay, now what am I going to do? So that's why I reached out. I'm like, hey, Max, if you want, I'm
Oh,
available. So,
okay.
and here we are. So thank you very much for having me on. And to everybody who's watching this, please share and like and subscribe to Max. The Freedom Calendar, you can do it all over the place. And go check out the website if you want to know what's up and coming and what events to go to. The APP has made a dedication that they're going to have even more town halls now. So they'll be all over Alberta. So if you want to sit down and have a conversation, have some questions answered, and listen and talk to other people, you'll have that opportunity. You can find that through the freedom network
Free
freedomcalendar.net
calendar.
and
Looking
get that
forward
done.
to live stream them as well too. I'm looking
Yep.
forward to live stream more events like this. And also, on the other hand, I know that people are not necessarily very warm to the idea of independence. I get it. I know people who are not necessarily warm to the idea of independence because they have questions. So
Hmm.
my response to that is this: go to an APP meeting, just one. It's free. You can donate $5-10 to the bucket if you want. You have some cookies, you got some coffee. Check with people. Your questions will be answered. If you can't move, if you can't go, you can always watch Freedom Calendar. All the town hall meetings are recorded. I make clips out of it so you can convince people as well. But also, I would like to tell the people who are on the independence train, who want to convert people who are not necessarily independence minded, just give them nuts, little tricks, plant the seed. Oh, what do you think? Why do you think everything is costing so much? Oh, don't you worry about the loss of freedoms that we have, censorship that's happening right now. Just plant the seed. Eventually, they will become independence minded and they will agree on us. So it works both ways. So don't be scared. Come to those meetings anyways. The guys from APP are doing a fantastic job at getting everywhere. But also, all the other guys who are independent straight, trying to be more, trying to convince the people down there with facts. They might not be independence minded right away, but have a coffee with them, or just after, when I set up my equipment down, when I put a thing into my car, just talk with them in a and respectful and educational matter, and that was going to gain numbers. Those people are going to gain, they're going to come up. I met a guy just recently, was in Lacombe, has a problem with his truck, and I have to help him with some gas and that sort of thing. Try and convince to go to an APP meeting next time, passing the words. And all people, and I know that people my generation, I'm a millennial at this point, they all fired up of independence. So pass the word. Don't be shy. If you're not fully convinced on independence, come and see us. And people who are inside, who are fully on the independence train, try to relay the message to other people in a more digestible way, if I say it like this. So exactly, that's going to be the important
And
part. So
yeah, and if you want to follow me, it's Jason Lavigne AB on X, and then the Lavigne Show on all the other platforms. So you can go ahead and
fantastic.
find me there. LavinShow.com will get you access to all of those platforms, so you can find links to all of them. If you want to like, subscribe, follow on any of them, you can do that. And you can also find tickets to that January 10th event with Bruce Party, Leighton Gray, John
Mm.
Carpay, Sean Buckley, Teresa Buckley, Mia Hughes, Dr. Jack Mintz, and myself. And you'll see Max there as well. And several other good media people will be there as well. So come hang out with us January 10th. It's a Saturday in Red Deer. It's going to be a good time.
At the Legacy Place, right?
Venue to be determined. Yeah, venue
Oh,
to be
okay,
determined.
fantastic.
It's definitely
Oh,
going to be Red Deer.
fantastic.
So yeah, yeah. You know how
That's
tough it
good.
is sometimes to keep the venue safe and to cause
Mm,
problems. People like to cause problems,
yeah,
but it's
absolutely.
definitely going to be
Yeah.
in Red Deer. So we'll commit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, Jason, for being with us tonight. It was amazing. Good talk. We'll talk soon. That's going to be
You got it.
fantastic. And and yeah, so I wanted to thank you guys for tuning in, and Max from freedomcalendar.net. The live stream is it's live as well too. I'm gonna make clips out of this out of after this live stream. I'm gonna make clips out of it so you can share to your internet friends down there, and also go to his event. And also I'm gonna do other live stream as well. This time I'm more focusing on interviews right now. But I have some new content that's been lining up as well in next week or so. And hope to see you there. And thanks for your time. And thanks, Jason, for being today. That
God
was
bless you,
very
Max,
cool.
and God bless everybody watching. Thank you very much for your time.